Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
I enticed her into the woods with words worth dying for. Dropped her on the daisies with praises worthy of the moment. Writing poetry outside under the eclipse of canopy skies. Angel spirits, we are challenged to quick meander through life and being. The most important tests are never administered by educational representatives in classroom setting. There are trials where initiates must face down their darkest hours in coming to know self. One lifetime in the immortal journey of soul. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio on Studio B at freedomslips.com. And I thank those of you that are here that have taken the time to join us this evening and that fellowship with me every Wednesday evening during these next 2 hours. Know that I appreciate your friendship and just the dialogue, the intimate setting that we've been able to share for the past several years now. And I pray that you are well wherever you may be and that life finds you of good health and well being. It seems that there are many daily being tried, tested in whatever manner, but we are all dealing with and struggling with life in its own strange manner and its own peculiar way that um it's life is truly the most incredible and most magnificent blessing, and waking up to each new day is just an incredible reward. um but it is struggle, and I know that a lot of you are having difficult time in maintaining and just trying to manage journey. And so know that I am praying for each one of you. Um, and even though, in the scriptures it talks about that there will be peace come sudden destruction, and that we know that also with the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, with um, the the things that the illuminists themselves are preparing for, that they are intending to bring order out of chaos, and that they are orchestrating, planning, and implementing on a wide scale conflagrations which will pit peoples against one another, and which are pushing already difficult situations, and specifically with the Middle East, with the situation in Syria, other Middle Eastern Islamic nations where terrorist elements have been groomed and funded and given power to push and drive an agenda. And specifically, what I am referencing is the whole controlled opposition that was pushed forth as vision by Albert Pike as means to bring forth and to drive the rise of the one world system and the establishment of world government, which would trump the national sovereignty of peoples worldwide. And that the fact that Pike's vision went out in 1871 and has been spoken about since that time shows us just how much power and authority the principalities, these rulers of darkness, those that are orchestrating the Oz behind the mask, those um what Paul references in Ephesians 6 with the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, wickedness in high places, the eye at the top of the Illuminati pyramid. That we spoke a lot about this in the show. And welcome everybody. Blues Girl, Kathy, good to see you, sister. Zippy, Blasphemous, Lucid, um, Zipster, Link, Audio Murphy, Monster, DARPA, and all those that are not in the immediate scroll. Know that I appreciate all of you, but we know that they have been intending and pushing forth in their effort uh, an agenda to gain maximum power and control and authority, and that they have utilized Ponzi schemes, you know, fiat money systems, the printing of money and loaning it to governments at interest, the creation of central banks, the Federal Reserve System. And if you missed the show that I did last week, where I spoke about the connections of the Federal Reserve System to that of the sinking of the Titanic deception, and its connections also to the largest or one of the largest insurance frauds that were perpetuated back in that day with the sinking of the Olympic and um, it being a replacement for the Titanic, and that the shipmaster, the captain, Edward Smith, that he knew before he had ever sailed into those icy northern waters, which were littered and riddled with icebergs. He knew and had as intention the sinking of that ship so that they could murder and destroy the um, the um, the adversity as far as the central banks that was being pushed forth by some of the most powerful and richest families in America, the Guggenheims, um, the Astors, and also I forget the other individual, the people that were owners and controllers of Macy's department stores. But anyways, with the sinking of the Titanic, the road was paved for the creature of Jekyll Island, which Kathy and I shared the link to where you could download that book, get it in PDF form, freely available. All you have to do is really just Google search it, but it tells you the story of these central bankers coming together in quiet manner, much like what they do currently with the Bilderberger groups. Um, the elites, these transnational, these globalists, and these wealthy royals coming together to decide on the fate and the direction which they would like to lead and guide world and the affairs of humanity, that plans are put into place decades, even centuries in advance. And if that just sounds absolutely just too crazy for you, when you really begin to study and look into Lucifer as being the light bearer and as being the director, the guide for these secret societies, and how they give their allegiance to him in leading the what seems to be disjointed direction of all of these loosely connected fraternities, brotherhoods, and even those of the sisterhoods, the Eastern Star organizations, and how even with the election they project and give humanity the belief and also inspire hope that we have part to play in the direction of our country and in electing representatives to heed the beck and call of the American people, which all of that really is just an illusion. It's all just a dog and pony show that they inspire such hope in us when never do they allow candidates to come forth which are not already controlled. And this includes the two or three candidates which the electoral process usually comes down to. Of course, they have their favorites. They most certainly like those families which have been dutiful and which have been allied to their agenda, which have shown and proven their allegiance over time, space, and history, such as the Bushes and the Clintons, Rockefellers, other families of, similar, the banksters, J.P. Morgans, um, all of those that have been the Kennedys that have been involved in the affairs of American politics for a very long time. And that even when they did not toe the line, how their families were quickly put into place. Just like with I don't know, those of you, hello Steph, if you know about John F. Kennedy Jr. and how he was also murdered And whether you know that side of the story, um, it's phenomenal the amount of murder that the assassinations which have taken place in order to control the unfolding of the political agenda here in America. And that whenever some candidate does involve themselves in aspirations of supporting the hopes and dreams of the American people, like, for instance, John F. Kennedy and wanting to destroy the Federal Reserve System and to institute treasury bills where the American government could then print our own money, Congress regulating commerce and printing coin, where we would not have to pay interest to a privately owned corporate banking system, which has no allegiance to America as country, flag, or people. And so we saw what happened to him. And in the show that I did last week, I talked about a lot of the presidential candidates which had made it a point to go against the founding and formulation of a central bank here in America. Andrew Jackson, the several times, I believe it was 7 times that they attempted to assassinate him. Also, um, Lincoln in producing the greenbacks, he had in fact published some treasury bills, much like John F. Kennedy, and both of them ended up dead. Garfield and other individuals. And it's always that way so that they control, manipulate, and thwart the ruling interests of those representatives which are supposed to be allied to the American people and the cause of justice, the affirmation of the Constitution, habeas corpus rights, the Bill of Rights, the rights and freedoms and values of America as it once stood, our being the shiny beacon on the hill of which the entire world looked to as um, as outlined for constructing their own representative governments. Like even the people of Vietnam, they look to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the rights and guarantees that we as the American citizenry were granted by the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And people really, really honored and looked up to what we had and enjoyed for so very long, and what we have given up in not remaining a vigilant citizenry. And it's sad, it really is. It's the saddest thing. I think it was Ben Franklin that said that, speaking of the Republic and how long it would last, um, as long as the citizenry remained vigilant and as long as we fought for it, but becoming complacent and being lulled to sleep, zombified by the amusements, the distractions, and the entertainments that have been fostered and propagated by the Illuminists as way to basically lullaby us to sleep. and um, uh, to keep us pacified. And it's a sad thing because America was it was a nation that was blessed unto world, and in being so blessed, there was a time when we blessed all of those around us. Now, of course, I know that the Masonic infiltration of America and the American politics, as far as the foreign um, the agenda for foreign affairs, that they have always had their guiding hand into pushing and abusing and controlling the affairs of our nation. But there was a time when it wasn't just outright corrupted as what we see now and what we are witness to now. Even the fact that, there's electronic voting machines, there's no way to verify um, a a paper count and to actually affirm one man, one vote, one woman, one vote, one person, one vote. We've even been subjugated by the electoral system and delegates. There is no popular vote anymore. And so, anyways, I'm just going off on a rant. And I want to talk a little bit about when we return from the first break. I'm going to talk a little bit about the the attacks, the false flag attacks that occurred yesterday in Belgium. That I don't know if you noticed, but happened to occur on March 22nd, 322, and supposedly the bombs had gone off at 9:11 in the morning, which those of you that are awake and aware and that have been at least awakened to the way that governments sponsor terror and incite false flag events in order to drive an agenda, and that there is speculation that Belgium is being punished for their stance against the mass immigration of um, these terrorist elements, these radical Muslim terrorist elements, which so much of the elites are trying to support and push an open border policy in order that they can put into place um, further terrorist elements so that they could orchestrate even more the agenda of false flag terrorism and creation of the boogeyman. Whenever they need to pop the jack in the box, they just turn the wheel a couple times and then bam, out springs Osama bin Laden or um, Al Zakari or whatever name they want to place upon the boogeyman. That's the way that they do it. It's been successful for hundreds of years, for many centuries now. Why change it? It's continuing to work even now, even though there is a portion of the public which has become hip to the controlled opposition and has become wise to their, I mean, basically their own directive. They tell us exactly what they're going to do. They're not trying to hide it. For instance, protocol number 3. In order to incite seekers after power to a misuse of power, we have set all forces in opposition one to another, breaking up their liberal tendencies towards independence. To this end, we have stirred up every form of enterprise. We have armed all parties. We have set up authority as a target for every ambition of states. We have made gladiatorial arenas where a lot of confused issues contend. A little more, and disorders and bankruptcy will be universal. I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than that. And the protocols, for those that have not read them, have not taken the time to go through them, they are telling you exactly what they intend to do, how they intend to do it, and exactly how they have done it. I mean, the protocols are a blueprint for global domination, for the assumption of power and the creation of a servant class. You know, the whole Georgia Guidestones. All right, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Um, just a couple things that I want to bring forth before I talk a little bit about the false flag elements of the attacks which went down yesterday. And that, as I was saying, there is speculation that because Belgium has been outspoken against the forced immigration policies of the European Union, that the elites which are pushing and driving the all of the populations of different individuals. And I personally don't have anything against any people or any nation or any religion or anything of that nature. But I do know that the global elite, that they um, want open borders. I mean, think about it. Since 9/11, we're supposed to have this grand war on terrorism, which Cheney said would not end in our lifetimes. And if you're going to really have a war, I mean, if we all know that it's an illusion, but if governments were truly trying to protect their people, the first thing you would do is to lock down the borders and to control the influx of the immigration and the kinds of people that you are allowing to enter into your country and cross borders. I mean, that's the first thing you would do, which that in and of itself should be verification to those that may still be on the fence as to, you know, is there something more to 9/11 and, the current and still ongoing policy of open borders? I mean, that should let you know right there that the representatives, whatever whoever it is, Obama or Bush or whatever senator or congressman or governor, um, even though we know that the lady, I believe her name is Janet or Jan down in Arizona, she was certainly serious about trying to shut off the borders and the porous nature of the borders in Arizona. but she's trumped. She's not getting any help. And the reason this has been ongoing and then continuous in the manner that it has been is because the elites are continuing to implement and establish um, organizations and training bases for the training of homegrown terrorism right here in America within the borders of many states. We know that, there's all these FEMA camps which are sitting idle and empty, and that all of those are also sitting in that manner for a reason such as what had occurred during World War II, where the elites of the various European countries where Hitler, went into and took over, like Poland and others, that the elites built the infrastructure for what was later used as the concentration camps. That all of that have been built up and established by the elites who had supported Hitler and the Nazi rise to power, as well as communism and the Bolshevik Revolution. Same ones that supported Operation Paperclip and the hiding and harboring of Nazi scientists right here in America. I mean, that's why it just does not make sense to the American people. For those that don't understand the inner workings of these secret societies and these um, fraternities and brotherhoods and sisterhoods and how they have these deep, dutiful allegiances and how their allegiances trump national sovereignty or even personal relationships, individual agenda. It doesn't make sense when you're on the outside looking in, but when you realize that they are working towards goal and have been for very long time, then it begins to make sense as to why the policies are as they are, why the borders continue to remain porous and open. It's not just for cheap labor. Yeah, that's part of it, but that's just one of the perks of having a porous border. The real reasons is they are, as it says in Jeremiah 50 and 51, the terrorist elements like a caterpillar that cocoons and later blooms and then comes forth in its time for rise and for reason. That's what's going on. We're in that cocoon stage where they're filling America with these terrorists. And not just America, they're doing the same to the European Union, the same thing that they did to the Middle East with Hezbollah and these other terrorist elements, Al Qaeda and ISIS and ISIL and whatever you want to call it. Same thing with how previous to that they had supported and established all these dictators, Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein and Bashar al-Assad, you know, Ahmadinejad, all of them, the mullahs in Iran. And so just because you don't see it and you can't make sense of it doesn't mean that there's not really a conspiracy going on. and that there's something a lot deeper at play than what most people are able and capable of wrapping their minds and heads around. My people are killed for lack of knowledge. And so let me read this passage really quick, since we are in election year and so many people are, you know, placing their faith in Trump and believing that he's not establishment and that he's not controlled in some way by the Bilderberger elite. You can bet absolutely that he is. And so is Clinton, and so is Cruz, and so is anybody else that they are parading in front of the televisions, or, you know, allowing to come and debate. It's all a dog and pony show. All right, just want to read a real quick quote from the Occult Technology of Power, from an article I wrote called Kissing Cousins, Staged Elections, and the False Left Right Paradigm, which is an article from my um, fifth book, Awaken to the New World Order. It says, now I will make you aware of how phony the left right Democratic Republican two party system, which has dominated American politics for 200 years, really is. The so called left right political spectrum is our creation. In fact, it is accurately reflects our careful artificial polarization of the population on phony issues that prevents the issue of our power from ever arising in their minds. We control the right, the left, conflict, such that both forms of liberty are suppressed to the degree that we require. Our own liberty rests not on legal or moral rights, but on our own control of the government, bureaucracy, and courts which apply the complex, subjective regulations we dupe the public into supporting for our own benefit. And I mean, it doesn't say it any better than that. Let me see if there's I believe I have in this article one other portion that talks about the false left right paradigm. Let me see if I can find it real quick. If not, I want to read one thing from the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, and then we will go into talking about some of these illuminous, numerology connections to the events of what happened yesterday or on 322. Again, that's an illuminous number, skull and bones, 322, the Yale Secret Society. Um, I can't actually find that quote right now, so I'll look for it over to the next break. But let me pull up some of this information, because also in the very latter part of the show, I wanted to share something with you that has connection to pre-existence. I've been reading this really interesting book, which I'll post a link to it when I get to that particular part of the show. But and those that have not read either the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion nor the Occult Technology of Power, read those. They are so very interesting, and they will give you insight into what's really going on from behind the scenes, and how these globalists elite, how they raise their children and groom them for rulership and what they think of you as, useless eaters. So, what I wanted to cover, and also I'll talk about something else in connection to 9/11, which is absolutely mind blowing for those that don't know about it. But there was an article that was put forth called "One Redditor Predicted the Brussels Attack." It says, why paranoid armchair activists are obsessed with the date that Brussels was bombed. 4 days before, terrorists set off bombs in Brussels that killed at least 30 people and injured about 230 others. Redditor, a guy named Lord Rothschild, interesting, huh? Predicted that ISIS would attack on March 22nd. In a post titled "What's Happening on March 22nd?" Lord Rothschild asked, "So, does anyone have any theories as to what the Illuminati will do on the 22nd of March this year? Will it be the date of a planned ISIS attack on Big Ben in London, where the tower is supposed to be blown up?" Granted, Lord Rothschild got the European city wrong. Now, that Lord Rothschild is just a pseudonym, but he could absolutely have something to do with, one of those Illuminist families. Or he could just be somebody that is having awoken to the way that the New World Order elites work, know that they pick such dates and utilize such numerology as way to plan a sacrifice to their god Lucifer, Baal. Lord Rothschild also guessed it could be a meteorite strike or an earthquake coordinated by the Illuminati secret society using interdimensional technology. But hey, the date was spot on, and that's because March 22nd is a significant day for conspiracy theorists who believe that the Skull and Bones Secret Society is a faction of the Illuminati, a massive underground secret society hell bent on creating a new world order, a global government that will enslave the masses. The reason these fringe thinkers put so much weight on March 22nd, 322, is because the Skull and Bones emblem includes the number 322. Skull and Bones is actually just an underground organization at Yale University. The society reportedly has many influential bonesmen among its ranks, including former President George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush, Secretary of State John Kerry, Austin Goolsbee, Chairman of Barack Obama's Council of Economic Advisors, and Harold Stanley, co founder of Morgan Stanley. And while there's no evidence to prove any of these members are involved in a nefarious scheme to create a totalitarian worldwide government, that doesn't stop paranoid armchair activists from proving otherwise by scouring for meaning in every coincidence. There are a few theories about the meaning of the number 322 on the society's logo. One is that the numbers blend the founding year 1932 32 with the chapter number, second chapter. The Yale based chapter was organized after the first chapter of Skull and Bones, which was founded at an unknown university in Germany on an unknown date. Other theories point to the year Demos, Demosthenes, whoever that is, died 322 AD, or to the Bible verse Genesis 3, verse 22. Regardless of the number origin, many conspiracy theorists believe that it guides the Skull and Bones as they make moves in their quest for world domination. In Lord Rothschild's post, the Redditor point to the date of President Obama signed the Affordable Care Act. It was actually a day later on March 23rd, 2010. Other conspiracy theorists have noted that the date appears to be related to other important events, the first American Indian massacres on March 22nd, 1622, the first gas chamber that was completed at Auschwitz, March 22nd, 1943. But now that an act of terrorism has taken place on March 22nd, conspiracy theorists are once again waving the false flag, insisting these bombings, or as some alleged staged events that look like blasts, were actually orchestrated by government powers. Since the attack in Brussels, the conspiracy has erupted with comments about the meaning of a large scale attack on March 22nd. Some chimed in with skepticism, pointing out that even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. Um, just a little bit more. But Lord Rothschild is standing his ground. He says, quote, "My mom told me about the Brussels attack when I got up today. She was listening to the radio. I told her that I predicted the attack, and she believed me." Lord Rothschild told Vocalty, "I'm obvious not a psychic, though, just a regular Joe waking up to the reality that we live in." Conspiracy theorist author Kevin Barrett penned a post for Veterans Today, a blog that bills itself as a journal for the clandestine community aimed at veterans. In it, he explained why a Skull and Bones orchestrated Brussels attack was just the latest in a long line of false flag events staged by Zionist central bankers and their Israeli linked crime network syndicate to create and fuel a war on Islam. Now, this connects to Albert Pike's vision, which we'll go into when we return from break. Um, Continuing just a little bit more. And then right on cue, paleo conservative radio host Alex Jones, which I believe to be a shill, chimed in to denounce the Brussels attack as a false flag operation. Jones is perhaps the most high profile conspiracy theorist in America, one who believes that modern massacres are scripted affairs designed to further the Illuminati master plan to create a new world order. Um, yeah, they say that he, basically predicted the attacks on 9/11. But I think all of that was done just as a way to give him credibility in leading the alternative truth movement, and that he was established as a spokesman, much like David Icke, um, and that they together are, have a lot of people looking to them for direction in understanding um, the whole, you know, deciphering the illusion parading as reality. As far as when we should expect that evil global government to take over and force us to play Hunger Games, Lord Rothschild also thinks the answer lies in the number 322, which the Redditor claims is a reference to the date that the New World Order plans to implement their 1,000-year kingdom, the 22nd year in the third millennium, 2023. Um, it's my opinion that they already have in place that world government and they are pushing it and have been flaunting it, even with, the establishment of the United Nations in 1945. Be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Studio B, and we come to you every Wednesday evening, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Kathy Dunson is my liaison in chat, and so if you're wanting to send me a question or if I miss it, or if you're asking me something or sharing commentary and I miss it, just send it to her and she will make sure that I get it. Um, Now, I do want to really quickly just remind listening audience, those of you that can and can afford to and that do that go to freedomslips.com and support the network, that we greatly appreciate you doing so, and it allows us to continue to come to you in the way that we do, with the wide array and eclectic, motley crew of individuals that um, have platform here on the network on both Studios A and Studio B to talk about all the what most people would consider to be insanity, largely fringe topics, current events, in bringing forth truth in the way that we do. We all have our own personal flair in covering certain angle and perspective. But in my opinion, it does help those of you that are trying to really make sense of what's going on in the world, that there are really very few platforms where you're going to get truth in the manner that we are presenting it. And there are a lot of really incredible hosts here on the network. And for that, I'm greatly appreciative in being part of such a, widely diverse and incredibly, um, as far as those that have stood for truth and stand and side with it in doing what we do, because none of us are getting paid. I mean, we're not, we, the work is about blowing and sounding the trumpet. And it's not about any kind of monetary concern. If that's what you're in it for, and you have to look at your heart, because in my opinion that's not really what it's about. What it's truly about, in my opinion, is bringing people to remembrance on who they are and what they themselves can do. Because all of us, if we empower ourselves and encourage one another, we can accomplish great things in this world. Like, I never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing now. Even with the level of my physical disabilities, to be able to come to you in this manner, speaking to you from a world away, having people listen to me on the other side of the plane, Australia, New Zealand, whichever part of the world you're living in. Um, I mean, it is incredible. It's a fantastic, beautiful endeavor that we can all come together in time and space and share fellowship in this way, in this manner, talking to one another and really affecting each other's lives in the way that we do. Because I consider many of you as some of my closest friends and my deepest confidants. And I speak more to a lot of you than I do to, most of my family members. And I consider you my family indeed. And I know that for a lot of you as well, um, that really, even within our own blood families, in our own children, um, or our own familial relationships, there's nobody that we can really discourse with in a profound manner, in the way that we are able to do, in the way that we do, in coming together and sharing shows such as this, and sharing information such as this. And it it helps, I know it helps me to stay sane, to realize that, I'm not the only, what they would say, lunatic fringe nutbag out there. At least I have a population of friends such as you that, I can share the journey with. I'm not the only, uh, one that is the black sheep, as far as in doing what I do. At least I have all of you as my brothers and sisters and walking with me, and standing together, in supporting one another in this journey. And for that, I'm greatly thankful to all of you and know that I send you my love as well. And I thank you for your profound relationships with me. You certainly make the journey that much easier and you make it worthwhile as far as the things that I do. And so anyways, let's go ahead and get back into this. I wanted to cover and talk about just a little bit from this protocol. This one protocol that is in connection to um, some of the what I've been speaking about this evening. And it's protocol number 3. And it says this. And what is interesting about this protocol is that they also speak about a time that they have prepared for in pushing forth and basically driving the agenda for world into situation which is where we have and what we see around us. This is what um you know this is why it is the way that it is. All right. Protocol number 3. Just gonna read some of it. Today I may tell you that our goal is now only a few steps off. There remains a small space to cross, and the whole long path we have trodden is ready now to close its cycles of the symbolic snake, by which we symbolize our people. When this ring closes, all the states of Europe will be locked in its coil as in a powerful vice. Number 2. The constitution scales of these days will shortly break down, for we have established them with a certain lack of accurate balance in order that they may oscillate incessantly until they wear through the pivot on which they turn. The Goyim are under the impression that they have welded them sufficiently strong, and they have all along kept on expecting that the scales would come into equilibrium. But the pivots, the kings on their thrones, are hemmed in by their representatives, who play the fool, distraught with their uncontrolled and irresponsible power. This power they owe to the terror which has been breathed into the palaces, as they have no means of getting at their people. Into their very midst, the kings on their thrones are no longer able to come to terms with them and so strengthen themselves against seekers after power. We have made a gulf between the far seeing sovereign power and the blind force of the people, so that both have lost all meaning. For like the blind man and his stick, both are powerless apart. In order to incite seekers after power to a misuse of power, we have set all forces in opposition one to another, breaking up their liberal tendencies towards independence. To this end, we have stirred up every form of enterprise. We have armed all parties. We have set up authority as a target for every ambition. Of states, we have made gladiatorial arenas where a lot of confused issues contend. A little more, and disorders and bankruptcy will be universal. This is where we find ourselves now. Just a little bit more. Babblers, inexhaustible, have turned into oratorial contests. The sittings of parliament and administrative boards, bold journalists and unscrupulous pamphleteers daily fall upon executive officials. Abuse of power will put the final touch in preparing all institutions for their overthrow, and everything will fly skyward under the blows of the maddened mob. See, this is the order out of chaos that they're talking about. They have planned a day when everything crumbles, where all the dominoes are set in motion and the old order, the systems that have been put into place and that have been um, carefully maintained as far as balance of powers, that will all crumble. National sovereignty, and then, the establishment of world government, the international banking power and authority through the United Nations, all that will come into place in a way that we can't imagine right now. The United Nations, most people believe, is just a failed institution, one that does not deserve the reputation that they seem to enjoy. Um, but at some point, it will be empowered to control the affairs of the nations of the world. All right, continuing. All people are chained down to heavy toil by poverty more firmly than ever. They were chained by slavery and serfdom. From these, one way and another, they might free themselves. These could be settled with, but from want, they will never get away. We have included in the Constitution such rights as to the masses appear fictitious and not actual rights. All these so called people's rights can exist only in idea, an idea which can never be realized in practical life. What is it to the proletariat laborer, bowed double over his heavy toil, crushed by his lot in life? If talkers get the right to babble, if journalists get the right to scribble any nonsense side by side with good stuff, once the proletariat has no other profit out of the Constitution, save only those pitiful crumbs which we fling them from our table in return for their voting in favor of what we dictate, in favor of the men we place in power, the servants of our agenture. Republican rights for a poor man are no more than a bitter piece of irony, for the necessities under of toiling almost all day gives him no present use of them, but the other hand robs him of all guarantee of regular and certain earnings by making him dependent on strikes by his comrades or lockouts by his masters. When I get to the portion about the order out of chaos and also the rise of the Antichrist, we'll stop and then we'll go into a different aspect of this. The people under our guidance have annihilated the aristocracy, who were their one and only defense and foster mother for the sake of their own advantage, which is inseparably bound up with the well being of the people. Nowadays, with the destruction of the aristocracy, the people have fallen into the grips of merciless, money grinding scoundrels who have laid a pitiless and cruel yoke upon the meek, upon the necks of the workers. We appear on the scene as alleged saviors of the worker from this oppression when we propose to him to enter the ranks of our fighting forces, socialists, anarchists, communists, to whom we always give support in accordance with an alleged brotherly rule of the solidarity of all humanity, of accordance with an alleged our social masonry. The aristocracy, which enjoyed by law the labor of the workers, was interested in seeing that the workers were well fed, healthy, and strong. We are interested in just the opposite, in the diminution, the killing out of the goyim. Our power is in the chronic shortness of food and physical weakness of the worker, because by all this implies he is made the slave of our will, and he will not find in his own authorities either strength or energy to set against our will. Hunger creates the right of capital to rule the worker more surely Then it was given to the aristocracy by the legal authority of kings. By want and the envy and hatred which it engenders, we shall move the mobs, and with their hands we shall wipe out all those who hinder us on our way. When the hour strikes for our sovereign Lord, this is the Antichrist. When the hour strikes for our sovereign Lord of all the world to be crowned, in it it is these same hands which will sweep away everything that might be a hindrance thereto. Last part. The Goyim have lost the habit of thinking unless prompted by the suggestions of our specialists. Therefore, they do not see the urgent necessity of what we, when our kingdom comes, New World Order, shall adopt at once, namely this, that it is essential to teach in national schools one simple, true piece of knowledge, the basis of all knowledge, the knowledge of the structure of human life, of social existence, which requires division of labor and consequently the division of men into classes and conditions. Basically, a caste system where they sit on the top and rule from the top down. And we, the rest of us, are just slaves for their service. All right, we're almost to the next break. Um, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there. But certainly, as I said, I would recommend people to read the entirety of the protocols as well as the occult technology of power. It's a fascinating read, and if you've never done so, it will give you insight into how it is that they have controlled, established, and set into place an agenda for dominating the different governments of the world. Because this protocol, the the way that they have controlled and asserted control over the masses and subjugated the kings and queens and the ruling authorities. Um, it, I mean, it is sinister, and but it has worked, and it has granted Lucifer the authority to control, which we know he was given temporary reign over this world, and he certainly has asserted it. And in doing so, he is leading us to world government and to a prison planet type system. All right. Um, oh, I wanted to make mention of before we get to break something that is connected to a movie that was put out by Hierophant called I Pet Goat 2. And Kathy, if you have chance, if you'll look up that video and share it. What is interesting about this particular video that was done by this particular organization is that they showed through this animation, this film, they talk about the Illuminati control. Also, Osama bin Laden's control through the CIA, his connections to the CIA, the false flag terrorism, Bush and Obama being controlled, how they're basically just idiots on a string. They're just salesmen. They have no true power. They're not real, uh, as far as the power behind the presidency. They're just puppets on a string. And they dance to the Devil's Symphony, whatever tune it is that the Bilderberger elite and the eye at the top of the Illuminati pyramid. which is Lucifer, they follow their orders and uh, yield to the dictates of their ruling authority. And Lucifer, Satan, the adversary, is Oz behind the mask. And they utilize certain videos and publications and um, productions such as this to basically tell us what they're going to do. It also talks about CERN as Stargate, the Large Hadron Collider, how they would, basically open the portals of Shakti or Shiva, the one of these uh, Hindu gods of destruction or goddess of destruction. And so they have been following a plan, inviting into this world, into this third dimensional reality, into this plane of existence, these dark seated forces, these powers, these principalities, these rulers of darkness, as it speaks about in the Emerald Tablets of Thought. How there was a time when they called up these dark forces from below. And it's ongoing. It's the same thing that they are doing even right now. The same kind of thing. And so who knows how all that's going to affect us, but we know that we were warned by Yeshua in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. As in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the second coming of the Son of Man. Also, I'll share something which is really interesting to you that I learned about when I was reading this book, The Chronicles of Jamriel, I believe it is. The Chronicles of Jeremiel. It's a book that I've been reading lately. It came out in 1899. And it's basically like a jasher or a jubilees where it follows along with the Genesis creation account, speaks about the 4 days, and all, and then the, the 7 days leading up to the Sabbath, and then also talks about um, the bloodlines and the children of Adam and Cain and the wars between the giants and the serpent seed and the seed of the woman and the sons of Jacob against the sons of Esau, the sons of Isaac against the sons of Ishmael, um, the children of Jacob against the children of Esau, Joseph and his people, the Hebrew Israelites against the pagan Egyptians, Moses, and then against the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Jebusites, the Hivites, the Girgasites, the Amorites. I mean, all of the giant clans that were living in the land of Canaan. It's a truly interesting text, but when we return, I'll read something about the what they were doing with the Tower of Babel. It's interesting. As long as I can find it, I'll be able to read it to you. I'll go ahead and share the link to it for those that might be interested in wanting to read it or study it yourself. Be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. And I want to end this show with encouragement and also to share with you a word from some testimony that I've been reading from, which was very interesting to me, especially in connection to pre-existence and also to the work that I have done on who we were before our incarnation into flesh form and how that connects to who we are, why we're here, and what all of this is about. Because it's my opinion that in having previous existence and having been formulated by the Most High God as an angelic being, as part of the sons of God and the divine council, that we really have an important part to play in being here in the flesh and now, especially with our being the fig tree generation, the last generation, and that because the times are so crucial, so very critical, that all of us have very important part to play in the unfolding of these last days. And that even if we're not capable of recognizing just how deeply connected to the creation and to the creator we are as the children of the Most High, um especially for those that haven't come to remembrance on some of these issues and some of these things and are not yet prioritizing kingdom, are not yet fully living for the eternal inheritance of salvation and for the life after the one that we are temporarily involved in. Now, I'm not saying to ignore this lifetime in pursuit of what is going on. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I'm saying embrace it completely and know that there's special cause, reason, mission, and role for each one of us in being here right now and at this time. And that in recognizing that within ourselves, we can then aspire to fulfill that which we are really called and were placed here to do. And so I'm going to share with you something that I discovered in this particular text. But before I do, I want to share that one thing that I was talking about before we went to break about the reasons why um, Nimrod, under the One World Order, which, in their efforts back then, they were trying to build a tower. And what it is that this particular text says of that reason, it says this. I'm going to go up just a little bit. Okay. Um, so that when the builders ordered the people to bring stones, they brought water, and when they told them to bring water, they brought stubble. In this way, their evil intentions were frustrated, and they ceased building the tower, and the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Remember, this is, basically the Most High dealing with the one world order, the New World Order, even as far back as the Tower of Babel. And this is what it says about their intentions. For they had said, come and let us build for ourselves a city, and let us take axes and break open the firmament, so that the water flow from there and descend below, that he may not do unto us as he did to the generation of the flood. And let us wage war with those in heaven and establish ourselves there as gods. So this, I was watching one of Rob Skiba's videos today where he was talking about Operation Fishbowl and how the Russians and the Americans were sending up all these nukes as a way to possibly test the firmament and the barrier of it. And it's my opinion that the fallen angels, ever since their imprisonment here to the earth and to this plane of existence, that they have been since that time seeking a way to break free, to get beyond the firmament and to escape the judgment that is coming. And it's my opinion that they're not able to do so. But, anyways, I thought that passage was really interesting. All right, now I'm going to read because I know I'm going to quickly run out of time. So, I'm going to share with you this portion of the text from this Chronicles of Jarmariel, the formation of the child. It says this: I will now proceed to explain the formation of the fetus which God created when man approaches his wife. God indicates it to the angel appointed over conception, whose name is Layla. God says, know that this night a woman will conceive. Take the sperm, place it in thy hand, and break it on the threshing floor into 365 particles. He does so. He then takes the sperm in his hand and brings it to God and says, O Lord of the world, I have done as thou hast commanded me, and now decree what is to become of it. God then decrees that it will be either strong or weak, male or female, rich or poor, beautiful or ugly, long or short, wicked or righteous. God then makes a sign to the angel appointed over spirits and says, bring me a certain spirit which is hidden in the Garden of Eden, whose name is so and whose form is so and so. This applies to all the spirits which are destined to be created. For from the very moment when the world was created, all these spirits were prepared for men. As it is said, what has already been has been called by name. The angel brings the said spirit, which when it comes before God, bows down and prostrates itself before him. At that moment, God says to the spirit, enter thou this sperm. The spirit then opens its mouth and says, O Lord of the universe, I am satisfied with the world in which I have lived from the day on which thou didst create me. If it please thee, do not suffer me to enter this impure being, for I am holy and pure. God replies, the world which I caused thee to enter is better than the world in which thou hast lived. And when I created thee only for this purpose. God then causes it to enter this new being against its will. The angel then returns and causes it to enter the womb of its mother. Two angels are prepared to watch the embryo during pregnancy. A light shines upon the head of the child by which it sees from one end of the world to the other. In the morning, the angel takes it, carries it into the Garden of Eden, and shows it the righteous men who sit there in glory with crowns on their heads. The angel then says to the soul, my child, dost thou know who these are? No, it replies. The angel then says, these people whom thou seest here were formed like thee in the womb of their mother. They went forth into the world and observed God's statutes. Therefore they became worthy of this bliss. Know also that thou wilt at the end of thy days depart from the world. And if thou wilt be thought worthy to hearken unto the law and the commandments, then thou wilt be likewise worthy of sitting with these in the place where I showed thee. In the evening, he carries it into Gehenna and shows it the sinners, whom the wicked angels beat with fiery staves. They cry, woe, woe, but no mercy is shown them. The angel then says to the soul, dost thou know, my child, who these are that burn? No, it replies. The angel answers, these were of the same mean origin as thou art. They went forth to the world and did not observe the commandments and judgments of God. Therefore, they have come to this place of punishment. Know also, child, that thou must ultimately quit this world. The angel walks about with it from morning until evening and shows it every place which it is destined to tread, and the place where it will be buried. After this, he shows it the world of the good and the world of the wicked, and in the evening he places it back again in the womb of its mother. God then encloses it within folded doors, as it is said, and he shut the sea with doors until it burst forth from the womb and became free. It is further said, I will lay my words into thy mouth, and I will protect thee in thy shadow of my hand. God then said, thus far thou shalt go and no further, and he sustains the child in the womb of its mother for 9 months. At the end of that time, the same angel comes and says to it, come forth, for the time for thee to come forth, to go forth into the world. It replies, have I not already told God that I am satisfied to remain in the place where I was accustomed to dwell? And he replied, the place I will cause thee to enter is better than the world from which thou hast come. Now that it pleases me to remain here, why dost thou wish to remove me hence? The angel replies, thou must know that thou wast formed in the womb of thy mother against thy will. And now the that against thy will thou wilt be born and will come forth into the world. He then immediately strikes it, extinguishes the light, and brings it forth against its will. It then forgets whatever it has seen. As soon as it comes forth unto the world, it cries. And why does it cry? Because of the world it has left behind. For at that moment, 7 new worlds are awaiting it. In the first world, it is like unto a king after whose welfare all people ask, all desire to see it and embrace it and kiss it because it is in the first year. In the second world, it is like unto a swine which wallows in mire. A child does the same until it reaches 2 years. In the third world, it is like unto a kid that skips and gambols about on the meadows. Thus a child skips about here and there until it is 5 years of age. In the fourth world it is like unto a horse which strides along haughtily. In the same way does a child walk along proud of his youth, until he is 18 years old. In the fifth world he is like unto an ass upon whose shoulders burdens are placed. In the same manner, burdens are heaped upon man's shoulders. He is given a wife by whom he begets children. He must wander to and fro in order to obtain food for them until he is about 40 years old. In the sixth stage, he is like unto a dog, insolent and wandering about in all places for food, stealing and robbing in one place and enjoying it in another. In the seventh stage, he is like unto an ape whose appearance is changed in every aspect. All the household curse him and desire his death. Even the young children make fun of him, and even the smallest bird wakes him from his sleep. Finally, the time arrives for him to quit this world. When that time arrives, the same angel comes beside him and says to him, what is thy name? To which he replies, so and so. And why dost thou come to me this day? To take thee away from this world. When he hears this, he weeps, and his voice reaches from one end of the world to the other. But no creature hears his voice except the cock. Have I not already told thee, he says, not to bring me forth from the world in which I have lived? But the angel replies, have I not already told thee that against thy will thou wast created, against thy will thou wast born, against thy will thou livest, and against thy will thou shalt die? Also against thy will thou art bound to render account and reckoning before him who said, and the world was made. Behold, these are the 4 divine hosts, which God showed to Elijah the prophet, as it is said, and he said, go out and stand upon the mountain before God. God then said to Elijah, behold, these are the 4 worlds through which man must pass. The great and strong wind is this world. After the wind comes the earthquake. After this world comes death, which causes the whole body of man to quake. And after the earthquake comes the fire. After death, there follows the judgment of Gehenna, which is fire. And after the judgment of Gehenna, there follows a voice. As it is said, a still soft voice, which is the voice of the last judgment. After this follows the judgment of the spirits that flit about in the air, and no one is left except God. As it is said, God alone shall be exalted on that day. All this is included in the words of the holy tradition spoken by David, king of Israel, who said, I was made in secret, I was formed in the nethermost parts of the earth. All right, now, one last thing I want to share with you. Um, this story reminds me of another that I published in my seventh book, Skyfall, The Angels of Destiny, talking about pre existence and the pre election of spirit. And in that book, I talk about the things that I'm sharing here, but there was a particular story which was similar to the one that I just read. It comes from a collection of Jewish fairy tales that are 4,000 years old. And the story is called The Creation of Soul. And I want to share this with you as confirming witness to our pre existence. Then I'll check the chat room. It says this: Unlike the human body, which was created on the sixth day, the soul was created on the first day before anything else in the world. In that first hour, God created all souls and placed them in the highest heaven where they remain until called to enter the body chosen for them. When a baby is conceived, Layla, the angel of night, brings the fertilized egg before God, who decides its fate, whether it will be a boy or a girl, rich or poor, strong or weak, beautiful or ugly, fat or thin, wise or foolish. Only one decision does God leave in the hands of the unborn soul, whether it will be righteous or wicked. Then God sends the angel of souls to the highest heaven to bring back the soul destined for that particular body. Always the soul rebels, for compared to the celestial world, the lower world is but a poor place, full of sorrow and pain. But God reprimands the rebellious soul, saying, Hush, for this is why I created you. And so the soul enters the unborn child and nestles quietly under the mother's breast. The next morning, a second angel carries the soul to paradise where it sees all the righteous enjoying eternal happiness. If you follow God's Torah and live a worthy life, explains the angel, you will one day join these happy creatures here. But if not, and that night the angel takes the soul to the gates of Gehenna, where it sees the angels of destruction whipping the wicked souls with burning lashes. Such is the fate of those who are devoted their lives to sin and cruelty. The angel says, It is for you to choose for yourself. Between the morning and night of that day, the angel reveals to the unborn soul its future life, where it will live and where it will die, and where it will be buried. And then, at the end of 9 months, the angel announces that it is time for the soul to leave the warm refuge of the womb. Oh no, cries the soul, for that will be too much to bear. But the angel quickly silences it. So God has decreed, against your will you were formed, and against your will you will be born, and against your will you will one day die. Such is your fate. And with that, the angel strikes the newborn baby under the nose, leaving a small cleft there. Then he extinguishes the light shining above its head, and instantly the soul forgets everything it has learned during the previous 9 months. And then the baby emerges into the world crying and afraid. Each soul spends the rest of its time on earth recovering all that it once knew. All right, let me see. I believe there's a question. Kathy wants to know, where was that from? The first story that I read is from the Chronicles of Jarmaril, which I gave you the link for. I'll actually pull up the exact link to the story so you can read it if should you want to. Uh, it's on the formation of the child. I'll give you the link here. I'll post this into the chat room. And then the second one was from a book of Jewish fairy tales, 4,000 years of Jewish lore. The story is called The Creation of Souls. And you can see how they're similar in the content that they talk about and discuss. Um, but I just wanted to share those stories with you to show that In fact, we did pre exist, just as my book, Skyfall, The Angels of Destiny, covers in great detail, which is also why, it says um, in Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, why the word of the Lord went to Jeremiah and says, I knew you before you ever entered into the womb of your mother. I have foreordained you to be a prophet unto the nations. This kind of pre existence doesn't just exist for Jeremiah, but it applies to all of us. We were all predestined. We were all created as the angels of God, the sons of God, as the counsel of the mighty, as asserted in Psalms 82. And we were all sentenced to die. And that sentence is what we are playing out in incarnating into flesh and living out our lifetimes right now. Um, I'll read the Psalms 82 for you to see how this applies. It says, God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. How long will judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked, Selah? Defend the poor and the fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and the needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They will walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, Ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the princes. That prince is like both Lucifer and Adam, because they were all angelic beings, but they fell from their high estate. They were placed into flesh. And if you don't think that Lucifer will die the death of man, read Isaiah chapter 14 and Ezekiel chapter 28. He will most certainly die the death of man, and he will be delivered to the um, pit, as it says in those particular verses. One last verse. They will ask you where are you going? The answer, to the place from which I came. I return to that place. The Apocryphon of James, the Nag Hammadi Codices. Now, if you're interested in pre-existence and want to know more, I recommend both my 6th book, Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here,